Hey, everybody. Larry Dillard here from University IT. I am one of the major support and process owner for WebCamp. So if you have any questions, I hopefully should be able to answer them. But I actually brought an expert. I don't see his picture here yet, but his name is Toivo. He's my boss, so be kind with your remarks while he's in the room. I don't see him yet. Okay, so we do have an agenda. Wait a minute, you guys are seeing my screen, right? Great. So we do have an agenda today, but really what we want to do is solve your questions. So I'm willing to take anything and take those comments now and make sure that we cover it. We only had one question based on a survey form that we put out. Any questions that you would like to add? Make sure you hear blah, blah, blah today.
I'm extremely new to Stanford Web Hosting anything, so I didn't even know what questions to ask, but anything you might hit on for somebody who's new to doing this period would be great, question mark?
Yeah, no problem. We'll get into the history and we'll also show how to get started at Stanford Domains, definitely. Others that we might want to do?
I have a question. I'm very familiar with the use of the NetDB system, and from what I understand, the new system is somewhat different, and so I would love to hear about the differences between the old system and the new system.
Okay, so just to clarify, NetDB is our DNS database, and the DNS, all it provides is resolution to, if you put this name in, send you to the place.
Right.
Domains.stanford or Stanford Domains is our web hosting platform. Basically, it's kind of like GoDaddy. Provides a CPanel where you can install CMS applications. So the two are completely different. They're not, They don't do the same thing.
Well, that answers my question then. Thank you.
Hopefully you stick around for the presentation. Okay, so thought we'd start off with a brief history of the application. So Stanford Domains was brought in by Vice Provost for Teaching and Learning a few years back. It was supposed to be providing a self-service tool for building like a personal portfolio and that kind of stuff, and where people could actually then move it onto their own host after they left Stanford University. However, it got used for a whole bunch of different things, and it was only being used probably about 25% for what its original intent was. So basically, it provides a whole bunch of different options via a personal cPanel. So it's just as if you were to go out to GoDaddy or some other web hosting provider and get a cPanel, install your own applications, maintain your own site, have root access to the area that you're using. It's a place to experiment and actually try different things. You can have multiple sites underneath your cPanel. It allows you to actually fairly easy take your site to a different host or stay with Reclaim Hosting, who our provider is, when you leave Stanford. So University IT just completed the transition from VPTL. They actually got reorganized back in August. So we completed the transition back in August, and we've just started, or we had started and completed most of the work for building like the base. So we've updated the self-service FAQs. This is really a self-service tool. And we're beefing up our support pages. So if you have any questions, just take a look at the support pages. We've structured the offering for long-term support. So we implemented space limits to start with 1 gig. If you need more space, you need to place a request with us in order to get more space. But for most, 1 gig is a lot. keep in mind that it's a web hosting platform. It's really not a document storage platform. For document storage, we really suggest you use another one, and there's a lot of great resources to pick the right one. Additional use policies have been implemented for it, which are out on our support pages. And we've created a process for getting a custom .Stanford domain, which kind of goes back to the NetDB question earlier. So if you want to get a custom name .stanford.edu for your website or multiple websites under your cPanel, that's doable. There's a request form for that. It gets approved by UCOM first, and then we get the setup completed for you behind the scenes, let you know that it's done, ready to go. So we are going to be introducing a yearly renewal process because we don't want things to go stale. So we will be starting that very soon, probably within the next few weeks. But I have until June 20 something to make that accurate. So we will get started with a yearly renewal process. So here's our website. So if you go out to Stanford Domains, this is what you'll see when you get started. And we have the service page, which is just listing off all of our services at UIT Stanford Domains. So I'm just going to click out of here and go to Domains. Get rid of that behind the scenes so you can't see all my junk email. So here's Stanford Domains. We have what it's used for and kind of telling you some of the features. So check out our service page, and then also we have the domains web pages. Kind of gives you some similar information. The interest form is just an interest form to let us know that here's what you're thinking about using it for. Both Toy and I get those emails. If you actually ask questions in there, we try to respond as soon as possible. The best way to get a hold of us, though, is actually asking a request, placing a request, because then we have to answer it because it's in our queue. Dashboard is how you log into the system the first time. The community is Reclaim Hosting's support pages, and then, of course, our support pages. So the self-service pages are really meant to point you in the right direction and help you get started. So the very first thing that most people want to know, well, what if I have more questions? So we have a support widget for that, and the request form is embedded in this widget right here. So we don't want to make it hard, but we don't want to make it easy for you to place requests with us because we want you to look through our support documents. So I thought I'd show you this cPanel really quick, just to kind of give you guys familiarize yourself with the cPanel. And I'm going to do this live, I think. So the cPanel is fairly generic. It's an organization that has cPanel, maintains it for us. Reclaim Hosting uses it. So this is the name of the user that's currently logged on. So if you're placing a support request, we're generally going to want to know what the current user is for the cPanel. We want to know what the primary domain is for the cPanel. That helps us get to it really quick. We have our ways, but getting to it quick makes it easier for us. And then here's your home directory. So this on the server, this is your area. And another important part of this is it actually shows you how much web space you're using. There's other things down here that may be of use, managing your files on the file server, on the web hosting server, and then securing your site with SSL, and also a whole bunch of other stuff. This is just this really standard kind of stuff for CPanel. In here, you have the ability to click in and see what apps I'm currently using, so you can see all the different things that are installed. These happen to all be WordPress, but if you had other applications installed, like Omeka or Wiki or Drupal, they would appear here as well. Okay. So one of the things we also highly recommend is checking out LinkedIn Learning. I'm just highlighting the Stanford University and Hospitals LinkedIn Learning class. However, there are over 2,000 other WordPress classes out at LinkedIn Learning. So we, take a beginning class. They're not really that long, and that'll kind of get you familiar with WordPress or what other application. People been out to LinkedIn Learning?
So we're currently using WordPress.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to skip the video right now, and we'll come back to it if we have time. But this video basically kind of shows you the basics of Reclaim hosting. So the scenarios we thought you might want to hear are right here. But to answer the question, the only question that was just before the meeting, did anybody fill in the survey form like within a half hour of attending the meeting? No. Okay, so the only question we had was, can I get custom domain out at Stanford Domains? And the answer is yes. Can I actually use Stanford Domains for Drupal 8 or 9? And the answer is yes, but that's not, Drupal is not the preferred, Domains is not the preferred platform for Drupal. Drupal's, our recommendation, University IT's recommendation for Drupal is Stanford Sites. And Stanford Sites has their own service page. In fact, we have Sarah here, right here, runs Stanford Sites. So Stanford Sites really is the preferred domain. But it is one of the applications you can install with the CPanel. So I'm willing to do any, and Toy is willing to do any demo that you guys would like to hear about Stanford Domains. I'll take it from you, or we can just start up at the top. Any specific questions? Everybody's muted now, so in order to ask a question, you can just wave at me or whatever, but you should be able to unmute yourself. No questions.
So WordPress is the thing that we want to go learn about. That's what we use right now.
Okay, well, this is really about Stanford Domains, but we'll definitely show you how to get started with WordPress.
Well, no, I mean, that's what we need to look for, like learn LinkedIn Learning or whatever.
Yeah, but I can show you getting started, and getting the process of getting started also include WordPress site. Okay, so if I get my window to move. I have too many monitors, and it's right in between all of the monitors. Okay, so first off, to get started, if you're out at domains.stanford, to spin up a new site, you could either start with the interest form, or you could go directly to the dashboard. If you go directly to the dashboard, then it's going to ask you for your first site. And so I'm going to show you our first site is this one right here. I'm actually using one of my coworkers' sites right now. So you would enter something of interest, .issue.domains, and you would start building off of that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your Sunet ID. Sunet ID is the easiest thing to remember most of the time, but it could really be anything you want. But we really strongly want you to keep it something.su.domains. And this is so that you can have multiple sites fairly easy hanging off the top of su.domains. So for instance, as you can see, this is the base site right here, but he's added in CS101 on the end. And I've added in a test one here as well. I see people squinting at their sites, so I'll make it a little bit bigger. So this is the base path right here, but you can add as many as you want on top of that. Okay. So after you get your site, then you want to start building stuff. So when you're logged on, this will be how it looks when you first log on and you want to install something. So you have WordPress here, Omeka, and if you wanted a wiki, you would go to all applications, and there's just like a gazillion applications out there for you. And the ones on this page are just the more popular ones. You can always look for other ones by searching for an application. But we're just going to start off with WordPress. And then you have to install it. Okay. So I'm going to back up here just a little bit because I've installed this application into test. So what I thought I would do is I thought I would create a new subdomain for this class presentation. So I'm going to come down here and go to subdomains, and I'm going to create WebCamp 2021. And that's going to hang off of the primary domain. And I'm going to get rid of all this. That way the base path is a lot easier. If you remember, the home directory is home/Jen Hong. That was on the first page under your applications area. So I'm going to create that. Okay, and then I come back here and I'm going to go ahead and install WordPress. Click on WordPress, click on install. And then I have to pick where I want to install it. WebCamp. So if you have the preference of HTTPS WebCamp, then you would want to do that. I haven't waited long enough for the SSL certificates to be had for that, so there's no HTTPS for that one yet. So I'm just going to install it here. You can put it into a different directory if you want, but I don't want. I just want to leave it into WebCamp, and it shows right here where it's being installed. You have options when you're installing. One of the options is to have a Stanford customized theme. So I'm going to choose Lagunita v1. And if you wanted to change anything else about the site, you can do that here. WebCamp 2021 demo. We highly recommend that you limit failed logon attempts. That way people don't break into your site, and then just click install. I think it should be installing. Why is it not? I don't think it liked being big. Okay, while this is installing, or maybe it's already installed, I wanted to show you something about the limit of failed logon attempts. We just happened to pick somebody's site, doesn't really matter. But this is the total number of attempted logons on any given site. So you can see the account is quite high. If you don't limit this, somebody's gonna end up guessing your password, so definitely do this. In fact, we recommend a plugin for that as opposed to the native one. I'm gonna show that in a second. So let's go back to 100% done. And then in order to work on it and get into WordPress, you now have a link here for WordPress. You don't necessarily need to be logged into your cPanel to get to the WordPress admin site. You can just go straight to there and log in. So we'll log in to WordPress. And then here's your limit logon attempts, which is because you selected that, it was already installed by default. Okay, and you have your dashboard. So let me see here, get back to the presentation. So we've started a new WordPress site. We added that into a new subdomain that we just created. We added the login needed thing and we theme, and we also did the limit logon attempts. So that's basically how you bring up a WordPress site. And in order to start doing posts, you would just do post, create pages, and this would be all stuff that you guys would do on your own. Go out and check out LinkedIn Learning for working with WordPress, doing anything you want. Keep in mind that Stanford Domains, it pushes out all updates for WordPress and plugins that it can. If you've installed your own plugins, you'll get little notifications. Plugins, it'll have a little thing there, 1, 2, 3, or 4, about how many need to be updated and that kind of stuff. So just make sure you keep up with your updates. Do you guys have questions about what I just did, installing a WordPress site into a new subdomain?
Larry, yeah, I actually have a question about access to the cPanel. Is access tied to a specific SUNET user, or can a team? Okay, so a team can't have like an anonymous access to cPanel.
I got my boss here, so I have to say the party line. The party line is we really want SUNET IDs tied to each individual cPanel. If for some reason you have a shared email account, then you would have to make a case for us for that. But the problem is that we have to manually set up that as a user, and then we have to attach that user to the cPanel.
I'll jump in there. Larry, how about workgroup integration? Can you talk about that or plans?
We don't currently have any plans for workgroup integration right now, but down the road. So it's fairly easy to request others get access to the cPanel that you've created. So if you've created a base cPanel and you're going to be managing multiple sites and that kind of stuff under a given cPanel, and you need other users in your group to be able to basically act as God for your cPanel account, then you would request that on a request form. Give us their name, their SUNET ID, and make sure the person requesting that already has access to that cPanel. We're just not going to give it to anybody. It's a fairly quick process. The only thing that we ask is that the person that's going to get cPanel access, they go and click the dashboard link, but don't do anything. Just click the dashboard link out here. And basically what that does is it sets them up as a user at Reclaim Hosting on our account. And that way when like Christina wants to request somebody has access, then she wants Joe to have access. So then I would go out there and I would see Joe in the list and I would be able to add him quickly to Christina's either that, or I'm going to have to send an email. Can you go out, click this dashboard, but don't do anything else? Just make sure. So yeah, they have to be known.
Quick follow-up question to that is, so anyone added, there's not like a primary user. So if someone initiated kind of the CPanel, other people are added on, but that initial user, leaves Stanford, that won't break the whole system, correct?
It will not. In fact, that's why we're doing our audit. So we'll be doing the yearly audit, and we'll be contacting the owners of the CPanel. Keep in mind, and I want to be really clear about this, providing access to the CPanel is requesting root access to your web domain, okay? And that means people they can clone, they can back up, they can drop, they can add users. This is giving people godlike access to your web environment, not just WordPress. So for instance, the WordPress that I just created, if I wanted to give somebody access to this webcam, I would log into the WordPress site and I would actually add them as a user in here. And this way you can have specific users with specific roles. So you could make them an admin or administrator of this particular WordPress implementation. Okay, so that would limit them to just WordPress. The reason why you want somebody to have access to your cPanel is because they are going to be God in maintaining all of the different aspects of the web host for your instance. Okay. Okay, so we wanted to do another demonstration for you. One of the most common questions we're getting, at least right now, is exporting from AFS and importing into domains. So I'm logged into a test site on AFS, and it has WordPress already up and running. If you were to go out to this link right here, it's really kind of lame. It's only just for testing and that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, there is a page here, and I think we have webcam 211 on it, 2021 on it. So it's just a really basic site. I've actually been made an administrator for this, so I have admin access to this. And now I want to move it from AFS over to maybe the site I just put in for webcam. So the very first thing you want to do, we recommend you use this plugin called All-in-One. So you can go take a look at your installed plugins, and I don't see All-in-One here, so we're going to search for All-in-One. All-in-One. Oops, add new. That was searching the installed plugins. So let's do add new. So here's All-in-One WordPress migration plugin. This is all documented in our help guide. So I'm going to click install now. We'll see how busy AFS is. Any questions while it's kind of like scrolling?
I have a question about Stanford Domains infrastructure and architecture. Is it redundant infrastructure, and where is the infrastructure located?
I'm going to let Toy take that one. If he doesn't, I will.
Larry, hi John. So I think the platform currently it's on the cloud. It's not redundancy, but it can be quickly. If there's an issue with the server, it can be come back quickly as possible, because that's the way that the cloud works. You have a system, it come down, it come back right away, right? And if there's no hardware there, because it's all virtual. So if Amazon or some other platform that it had the hardware die, come back with a different hardware right away. There's no need to, we don't have to get involved or anything. Even the vendor doesn't need to do involve anything. Yeah. So,
Is it on Amazon under the hood, or I mean, I can,
we
if you
are
can't
not
tell us
sure
that, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, we're not
It's
sure what platform they are on. Yep.
it's managed by our hosting provider for this platform is Reclaim Hosting. This is Reclaim Hosting's niche, is providing this particular service to many universities. So if you go out to Reclaim Hosting and take a look at the universities they're doing, they actually have links on all of the icons for the universities they're using, and it looks almost identical to ours. So they're hosting it for all the universities.
So
So
quick note. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So quick note, like I think like recently we increased the number of license that we have on the platform, and the vendors that take about 1 minute to recycle the bug and it come back right away with the new additional hardware, additional capacity, and all that stuff. Yep.
Great, thank you both.
So now we're going to activate the plugin, and so now this plugin is active. And you have it listed here in your installed plugins. If you want to deactivate it and uninstall it, you have to deactivate it first. Once you deactivate it, like Hello Dolly, then you can click the delete button. So you can delete it, but you have to deactivate it first. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to use the all-in-one plugin to export our site. In theory, this runs like really quick. So we're going to give it a go and see what happens. So all you do is, if you wanted to see what your options are, you can do your options. One of the things we've noted that for larger sites with a lot of images and a lot of files, you actually have to skip the export media library in order to make it work. The free plugin here is only up to a certain number of megabytes. So, but ours has enough to do everything. So we'll just, because our site isn't very big. So then you pick where to export it to. I would love to export it to Google Drive, but here again, that's a paid version of this plugin. So we're going to use the free version, which is to file. This actually runs really quick most of the time. So I think it took a minute and a half or something like that the last time to run. And while it's running, what you should probably think about doing is going to your destination WordPress install. Installing WordPress if you haven't, but more importantly, you want to make sure that you have the all-in-one plugin installed here. And as you can see, I actually already installed it. Oops, sorry, I'm putting it the wrong one. Where are we at? Issue, Jen Hongs. Okay, so all-in-one is installed already.
Larry, I may have missed it, but why is the reason you prefer the all-in-one plugin as opposed to the native WordPress import-export?
You'll have the best results. We haven't really run into failure other than for size, and we can get around the size restrictions with where's it at? We can get around the size restrictions by selecting the do not export media library almost all of the time.
Got it, thank you.
We've been really successful with all-in-one, yeah. Okay, so it actually does stay out on the file server for you, but in order to upload it out of domains, right now we're on Stanford Web. You do need to download it to your desktop, so I'm just going to click the download. We'll save the file. And then it downloads, right? If you need to see if maybe you deleted it by mistake after you downloaded, maybe you didn't click the download button, it'll be over here in the backups under all-in-one export. And here's the one we just did. So you could click here to set a label for that. Or if you wanted to name it, you could. And you would think that you'd be able to download it. Well, you can, but you have to scroll to the right and then you just download it again. Okay. So it's downloaded now. And then we're just gonna see it in our folder. See it in our folder. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pop over to the SU Domains one. So webcam, Jen Hong, this is the one we're importing into. Import from file. So all we do is drag our file. And that's about how quick it is to actually export from AFS and import into Stanford Domains. With a couple of caveats, if you have a lot of attachments, we really want attachments like, you know, PDFs and movies. We want those kind of out on a file storage system. The easiest place to put them would be to put them out on Google and share appropriately on a Google Shared Drive. But there's a lot of options, so check out University IT's options for file storage. Says, hey, listen, you're going to overwrite your current one. Yes, we know that. If you do run into an error when you're exporting from AFS, give us a support request. And it may be the case that you have to just simply don't export the image files. And if you do that, then we can assist you after you've done your export, done your import. We can copy over the image files for you, or we can walk you through how to do that via SSH, SCP, or SFTP, or Fetch, or whatever platform you're on. Okay, so now when we go to look at Jen Hong's site here on Stanford Domains, we're all up and running the same exact way we were on AFS. Okay. Simple, right? Okay. Toy, was I going to show anything else at the immediate time for this?
No, I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things, let me get back over here. I'm sorry, I'm going to clean up here just a tad bit. Okay, one of the things that you might want to do is you might want to provide administrative access to a particular WordPress site, or multiple WordPress sites. University IT is all about security and making sure things are supportable. So in order to maintain security, it's best if you actually install the SSO plugin, because then when people go out and they type in site name, domain, WP-admin, they'll just get logged in with a single sign-on at Stanford University. And it also ensures that when they leave Stanford University, that they won't ever be able to maintain your website again once their Senate ID is disabled. So what we strongly suggest is using the SSO for WP admins. And the why is, it's security, and they don't have to maintain passwords. You don't have to reset the password for them. They can't share the password. It's tied to their single sign-on account. So the setup doc is right here for this. It's a little bit more involved than what I just showed you for exporting from AFS and importing into domains. but we've tried to step by step list it out for you. And if you need any help working through these steps, go ahead and place a support request and we'll be able to assist you with that. But basically it just requires, where's my window? It just requires you to install another plugin. So you'd go to plugins and look for SSO, just like, oh, this is a really good point. This is, we moved, if you remember, WebCamp 2021 on domains is a copy of what? It's a copy of the AFS CIA site, right? AFS is using a different version of the database, actually a lower version of the database for WordPress. So we need to update that database after we installed it because it basically overwrote the site. So we just click update. And you might run into this issue. You gotta love demos. Okay, well, I'm gonna go in through the CPanel. That's the quickest way to get in. So I'm gonna do dashboard. You guys think I'm stumped, but I'm not. Sorry. I'm gonna go to my apps. And then I'm gonna go to the WordPress logon as a CPanel user. And we have to change one of the settings. And you know, actually, I forget which one it is, Toy.
Oh, you go to the plugin, disable one of the plugins.
Oh, plugins. We got to disable the plugin. Oh, so HTTP authentication is enabled on AFS because everybody logs in with their Senate ID and password, right? So you actually have to disable that. And if you want to delete it, you can delete it too. But now we won't have any problems with that. So I'm gonna okay, no more problems. Okay, and so here I was talking about actually installing the plugin for doing the SSO. So then you would go look for add new. And ours is, I want to get this right. Ours is one login. One login. This one right here. So this is a free plugin. And then you would follow the steps in the setup document that we have, which are fairly involved, but they are step by step. And you would be able to enable single sign-on. So the people that you put in the WordPress admin area, give them different roles and that kind of stuff. When they sign in, they would actually be going through SSO. The rest of the people visiting your site would just go straight to the site if you're just viewing a site.
Larry, would you please copy this link and add it to the chat or share it with us in some way?
Oh, you know, this is actually out there, but yeah, definitely. I have to find the chat. Where are you at? Oh, it's in orange, so I can't see it. I'm colorblind. So that's the single sign-on. But keep in mind that all of our help is on domains.stanford.edu/support. And you should be able to find you'll be able to find everything I've talked about here. If you don't find it, let us know. If we don't have a help guide, we'll create one. We'll walk you through it, give you the answer in the request. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make this self-sustainable. So if you've done it, there's probably going to be other people that need to do it. So just let us know, and we'll get a support guide there for it. So we have about 15 minutes left. We're prepared to answer any questions. I would like to show that video really quick. It's only about 2 minutes long. So let me show you that video. And in order to do that, I need to change my mic.
And I need to change my speakers.